The Galactic Concord's grand chamber was a monument to diplomacy, yet it crackled with the silent charge of war. Delegates from 100 star systems watched from their elevated perches, their jeweled robes and bioluminescent skins reflecting the chamber's soft blue glow. Kane stood alone at the central floor, boots planted, spine straight, the Terran emblem stitched clean across his chest. Across from him, Commander Vorton Velrix flexed his talons, a sneer curling beneath his breathing mask. 8 feet tall, draped in obsidian-scaled armor, the Zarn warrior radiated contempt. "You sit here," Vorton growled, his voice resonating to the amplified dome, "as if you belong among us, a species that only recently crawled off its dying rock, begging for protection." Kane said nothing. His eyes locked on Vorton's, unflinching, unreadable. "You mistake pity," Vorton continued, stepping forward, "for status, tolerance for approval." A murmur stirred in the chamber. A few delegates leaned forward, antennae twitching, eye clusters adjusting. The Terran delegation remained motionless, diplomatic discipline in full effect. Vorton stopped inches away from Kane. "You mistake restraint," his arm lifted, "for weakness." The open-handed slap echoed like a rifle shot. It wasn't a shove. It wasn't symbolic. It was deliberate, violent, and loud. Kane's head snapped to the left under the blow, and for a moment time held its breath. No one moved. Then Kane turned back. Slowly, deliberately, his jaw tightened, eyes narrowed, not in rage, but calculation. 2 seconds passed. Kane struck. His right fist shot upward, precise and sudden. It bypassed Vorton's armored chest and connected under the chin, just below the exoskeletal plating, right where cartilage gave way to nerve cluster. The impact lifted Vorton an inch off the floor. A wet crack followed. His body crumpled in on itself before collapsing in a heavy, twitching mass. Gasps flooded the room. Dozens of delegates recoiled. Others surged to their feet. The chamber lights flared red. Concord guards shimmered into view. Kinetic rifles at the ready, their armor plates buzzing with restraint protocols. Kane didn't move. Vorton lay motionless, green blood pooling beneath his mandibles. "I acted in self-defense," Kane said, voice level. "Under Article 4, Section 9 of the Interspecies Concord. You all witnessed the assault." He raised his hands calmly as the guards approached. One snapped a containment band around his wrists. Another activated a dampening field. It pulsed faintly against his skin. The lead guard, a scent-born officer with silver flesh and glowing eyes, spoke in a neutral tone. "You are being taken into temporary custody, pending council review." "Understood," Kane replied. Ambassador Reese, head of Earth's delegation, finally stood. His lips moved, but no sound escaped. He looked stunned, calculating the weight of what just happened. No one said a word as Kane was left on the floor. The chamber door sealed shut behind him. The holding room pulsed with sterile light. Walls of smooth carbon alloy curved gently inward, eliminating corners, escape, or comfort. There was no chair, only a black bench grown from the wall. Kane sat there, hands relaxed in his lap, breathing steady. He replayed the moment again, Vorton's posture, his tone, the distance he closed, the intention in the swing. Kane hadn't reacted emotionally. It had been cold, clinical, and necessary, just like a breacher drill. Fast, efficient, final. The door opened. Reese stepped in, gray showing sharply at his temples. "You realize what you've done?" "I neutralized the threat in accordance with Concord protocols." "You shattered the skull of an Orion guard in the central chamber," Reese snapped. "On record, with 3 dozen species watching." "He struck me." "You're a Terran representative," Reese said, his voice lowering. "You're supposed to be the example." "I was," Kane replied. "An example of what happens when you push a human soldier." Reese stared at him for a long moment, then sat. "The Zarn delegation is calling for your extradition. They want you tried under Dominion law. Publicly. Their broadcasts are already framing it as an act of murder." Kane's expression didn't change. "You handing me over?" "No," Reese exhaled slowly. "But that puts Earth in a corner. The Council will demand a concession, a penalty, or they'll vote to suspend us." And that's what the Zarn wanted. Reese nodded grimly. Exactly. They planned this. I'm starting to think so. Kane leaned forward. Then I need access to Vorton's last 30 days of movements. I want every chamber record, every meeting transcript. There's more coming. You're not a detective. I'm the only one who knows how to see past the performance. Reese hesitated. You're a soldier, Kane, but you just crossed into politics. That's a battlefield of its own. Kane stood. Then I'll treat it like one. In the council chamber, cleanup drones hovered silently over the scene. The blood was gone, but the memory lingered, vivid, raw. Vorton's body had been removed under heavy escort, a symbolic procession. The Zarn watched with fire in their eyes. Other delegates whispered, unsure whether to fear the humans more or respect them. Above, the council's central AI began compiling witness statements. 1,000 views, 1,000 interpretations. But only one image would echo across every news feed, every species net, every home. A Terran Navy SEAL standing over a Zarn elite, fist still lowered, unmoved, unafraid. And behind him, nothing but silence. The cell door slid open without sound. Eric Kane looked up. The light behind Ambassador Reese carved hard shadows across his face. His expression was unreadable. You're free for now, Reese said, stepping aside. Kane rose without a word and walked past him into the narrow corridor beyond. Concord guards flanked him, their helmets expressionless, weapons holstered but humming. Not a show of trust, just protocol. They walked in silence until they reached Earth's diplomatic quarters, a circular space embedded deep in the ring world's infrastructure. Earth's flag hung behind a main console, modest against the towering emblems of older civilizations. Kane stepped inside and paused. Why? He asked. Reese closed the door behind them. We traded 3 votes and classified tech specs for your release. Temporary immunity until inquiry proceedings begin. Kane sat down. You sold something. I bought time, Reese corrected. The council's boiling. You cracked open one of their champions in public. He tried to humiliate Earth. They expected a bowed head, maybe a formal protest. Instead, they got consequences. You gave them a martyr. Kane looked up. No, I gave them a body. They'll have to choose what it becomes. Reese didn't reply. He walked over to the console and tapped in a clearance code. A new window opened, surveillance footage. Kane's expression hardened. Deck 9, supply corridor, Reese said. 12 hours before the council session. Vorton met with 2 unidentified parties. Neither registered delegates, both masked. Kane leaned forward. No official record? Scrubbed. Someone tried to erase the encounter. Took our team 6 hours to pull this fragment from the station's backup buffer. Kane watched the grainy footage. Vorton stood between 2 tall figures wrapped in flowing black synthweave. One passed him something, a small case, metallic, sealed. What's in the case? We don't know yet, but I've got analysts working it. There's more. Vorton's war record came up edited. Edited how? Redacted combat logs missing debriefs. One operation stands out, Stygia 7. Kane nodded slowly. He knew the name. The operation had been buried deep, classified under Joint Concord oversight, but humans had fought there too. He remembered the drop, searing winds, sky on fire, the smell of melting soil. A covert facility deep in the mountains. When Kane's unit arrived, half the structures were already burning. What happened there? Reese asked. Kane closed his eyes for a moment. Stygia. 7 was supposed to be a joint research site. But when we arrived, it was overrun. Civilian scientists executed. Data banks wiped. The last message broadcast from the site wasn't a distress call. It was a warning. Warning of what? Kane opened his eyes. That someone inside the Concord wanted the facility erased. Reese paced slowly. You think Vorton led the wipeout? I think he didn't want survivors. Reese nodded once, then brought up another file. And here's the bombshell. The station logs show one human listed as killed in that raid, Lieutenant Reyes. She was part of your SEAL team. Kane's voice dropped. That's wrong. She made it. She was wounded. I carried her out. She died during evac after the mission. Reese turned to him. Then why is there no death certificate? No body? Her record ended that day. Kane stood slowly. Because someone didn't want to report making a home. 3 years earlier, Stygia, 7, the atmosphere burned orange from ionic storms. Kane's visor dimmed the light automatically as he dropped into the dust with the rest of SEAL Team 6 Echo. Weapons hot, Kane ordered. No chatter. The team advanced across scorched terrain. The compound ahead was cracked open, metal torn as if by claws. Inside, the scene was worse. Bodies, civilian researchers, lay scattered, most unarmed, some partially melted. No signs of enemy forces. No spent casings. "Sir," Reyes said, voice low, "something's wrong." They reached the central data core. It was already rigged to blow, delicate alien tech fused with human systems. And someone had wired a virus into mainframe. Kane scanned the pattern. It wasn't enemy code. It was Concord military encryption. They disabled the detonation barely in time. Then came the ambush. Not enemy mercenaries, Orion Guard. Vorton was among them. He moved like a beast through fire, cutting down one of Kane's men before vanishing into smoke. The SEALs returned fire. They took casualties. Reyes was hit during the extraction. Left lung collapsed, femur shattered. Kane carried her for 2 miles on foot before they reached evac. She bled out 5 minutes later. Officially, the report said enemy insurgents caused a loss. The file was closed. Until now, back in the present, Kane stood in front of the console, hands clenched. "They wiped Stygia to cover something," he said, "and they used Vorton to do it." Reese nodded grimly. "Now they've used his death to push a new agenda. 3 Zarn delegates have already submitted a proposal to suspend Earth's voting rights until we prove we can operate within civilized standards." Kane snorted. "They mean obedient. I mean to fight this with diplomacy. But if there's proof, real proof, that this was orchestrated, we won't find it in speeches." Kane cut in. "We need his comms, his security feed, anything tied to that meeting. We'll never get direct access. The Zarn guard their data like it's sacred." Kane's voice lowered. "Then we break in." Reese stared. "That's treason. Only if we get caught." The silence between them stretched long. "You're a soldier, Kane, not a spook. I'm whatever Earth needs to stop what's coming." Reese sighed and looked away. "You have 48 hours before the inquiry begins. If you're in a dig, do it fast. And clean." Kane walked to the wall, his reflection cast in the polished black glass of the Terran seal. "Vorton died too easy," he said. Reese looked up. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying he was a weapon, but not the one they're planning to use." Kane stood in Earth's intelligence annex, a shadowed compartment behind false diplomatic walls. Reese had pulled strings to unlock it. Unofficially, the chamber didn't exist. No surveillance. No automated Concord tracking. Only manual systems and 1 human operative. Lieutenant Myra Chin, Black Ops analyst, and Ghost on every official roster. She stood at a round table, fingers dancing across a Loshin display. The interface shimmered with decrypted Concord transmissions, pulsing softly in shifting blue glyphs. "This is what we pulled from Vorton's personal channel," she said. It wasn't easy. The Zarn encrypt their comms with rotating tri-layer quantum keys. We had to brute force the last layer. Kane nodded. "What did you find?" Chun tapped a node. The hologram reformed into a short, silent video. Vorton stood in a private chamber, one of the Zarn diplomatic suites. He was alone, save for a single shadowed figure across from him. The image was distorted, obscured by smart fabric cloaking. Only a faint shimmer hinted at a humanoid shape. "I want Earth off the council floor," Vorton said. "I want their seats empty and their warships grounded." The reply was indecipherable, filtered through audio masking. "But not through war," Vorton continued. "A war would unify them. They fight best when they're cornered. No, we humiliate them. We provoke a reaction. Let the council destroy their legitimacy." The feed cut out. Chin looked at Kane. Time stamped 36 hours before the incident. He stared at the empty space where projection had been. He wasn't just acting on pride. Someone fed him that plan. And they stayed hidden. No one hides from nothing. Someone backed that transmission. Chun tapped another node. A message history unfolded. Mostly corrupted packets, except one. A name. Director Sale Tavash. Kane's eyes narrowed. Concord Defense Intelligence. High level. Not Zarn. Not human. Osari race. They oversee intelligence liaisons across neutral sectors. Kane crossed his arms. Why would a Concord official be aiding a Zarn plot to destabilize Earth? Chin shrugged. If Earth's influence is growing too fast, the Concord might see us as a variable they can't predict. Contain us now, before we set our own rules. Kane leaned closer. And the case Vorton received? Chun pulled up a second image, low resolution but clear enough. The case was opened briefly during the meeting. A compact device inside. Small, circular, familiar. That's a neural spike, Kane said. Used to program or override cybernetic implants. Chin nodded. Exactly. Used in interrogation units, or to puppet someone short-term. Then Vorton was a proxy. Possibly. Or they wanted it to look like he was. Later that night, Kane sat alone in the embassy's inner chamber, light low. Window screens dimmed to hide the station's drifting starfield. He played the Vorton footage again. The lines of manipulation were too clean. Kane had seen political sabotage before, but this was surgical. No brute force. No overt power plays. This was orchestration, weaponized optics. Someone had built a narrative. Violent human overreacts. Slaughters respected Concord soldier. Earth loses credibility. The problem was Vorton hadn't expected to die. Kane remembered the split-second expression on his face. Not fear, surprise, like he'd assumed immunity. His thoughts were interrupted by the faint hum of a secure channel opening. A soft flicker lit the room. A hologram appeared, half-formed, intentionally scrambled. A face emerged, partially cloaked. Humanoid features. Faint violet skin. "You don't know me," the figure said. "But I watched what happened." Kane didn't move. "Name." "Call me Allery. I represent an off-ledger coalition. We operate within the Concord, but answer to no faction." "That's vague." "That's survival." Kane leaned forward. "Why contact me?" "Because someone in this council is trying to erase your world. Quietly. Slowly. And if they succeed, Earth won't burn in a war. It'll be voted out of existence." Kane kept his voice low. "What do you want?" "To show you what's coming. There's a plan in motion, decades old. You've seen pieces, Stygia, Seven, Vorton's actions, the suppression of Earth's rise. And you have proof?" "Fragments. You'll need to gather the rest. But I can give you the next step." The hologram pulsed, then displayed coordinates. Deck 47. Maintenance level Epsilon. There's a data core hidden in the auxiliary vent grid. It contains internal communications between several high-ranking Concord officials. Why trust me? Because no other species will stand up. And because when humans fight, they don't stop halfway. The image blinked out. Kane stood and keyed into the secure terminal. Within minutes, he was suited in light infiltration gear. Unmarked, silent, sensor suppressed. He slipped through maintenance ducts, bypassed biometric locks, and disabled passive surveillance nodes. No one saw him leave. Deck 47 was cold, not in temperature, but atmosphere. This deep in the station, even light felt artificial, strained. Old wiring buzzed faintly. Dust floated in weightless clumps. Kane moved with purpose, his path memorized, every turn precise. The vent opened easily. Inside, beneath a false panel, sat a crystalline core iridescent, about the size of a clenched fist. He pulled it free, a noise behind him. Kane spun. A figure lunged from the dark, blade raised. Kane dropped low, grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted. The weapon clattered. He countered with a palm strike to the sternum, following with a short elbow to the jaw. The figure hit the ground hard. Kane stepped back, ready, then paused. The attacker was young, barely an adult. "Oh, sorry." Eyes wide with panic. They said you'd be alone, he gasped. Who sent you? Silence. Kane knelt, pulled a thin chip from the boy's belt. It bore a mark he'd seen once before, etched into a data slab on Stygia 7. He let the attacker live, not out of mercy, out of strategy. Back in the annex, Chin decrypted the core. Reese arrived minutes later, summoned without details. The files were raw, unfiltered, internal messages between Concord bureaucrats, conversations about Earth's growth, its military potential, warnings from Zarn leaders, private approval from neutral factions to let Earth be softly sidelined until to be absorbed or isolated. One message, dated just after Stygia 7, stood out. Initiate Phase 2. Earth must be shown its place, preferably by its own hand. Reese stared at the words. They were never afraid of a war with us, he said quietly. They were afraid we'd win it. Kane nodded. We don't need to fight the Concord. Just expose the rot inside it. Reese looked over. What do we do next? We make this public. Chin shook her head. The Concord controls the narrative streams. They'll flag it as falsified before it even spreads. Kane turned to the console. Then we don't send it through official channels. He uploaded the file. To the outer colonies, he said. To the fringe diplomats. The ones who remember what the council did to their homeworlds. And if they retaliate? Reese asked. They won't. Why not? Kane looked out toward the window, toward Earth's faint star across the void. Because this time we hit first with the truth. The Grand Chamber had never felt colder, though its massive interior was carefully climate controlled for over 40 species. Today it hummed with something different. Tension so sharp it could have sliced through the armored marble beneath Eric Kane's boots. Delegates lined the chamber's curved balconies. Seated according to seniority, the Zarn delegation, draped in ceremonial black, occupied their place in silence. No raised voices. No chants. Just watchful, poisonous stillness. Above them, Concord banners shimmered under soft white lights. The Concord Judiciary stood in the center platform. 5 members from different races, each cloaked in gray, their expressions unreadable. A single podium had been raised at the chamber's center. Kane stepped into it. Earth's representative sat behind him, stone-faced. Reese was there, arms crossed. His voice had carried no weight in the debates that led to this moment. Today, everything would be decided in full public record. It was Kane's voice now that mattered. High Arbiter Nax, a being of translucent crystalline form, addressed the chamber. Eric Kane, commander of Earth's Terran forces, you stand before the council to answer for the death of Vorton Velrix of the Zarn Dominion. Speak now. Explain your actions. Kane didn't flinch. I won't offer apologies, he began. Not for defending myself. Not for responding in the only way the situation demanded. A wave of murmurs swept the balconies. Some were scoffs. Some were curiosity. I was provoked deliberately, he continued. And the moment Vorton raised his hand, he forfeited his protections under Article 4. He slapped you, hissed the Zarn dignitary. He attacked a representative of a sovereign member state. Kane snapped. The method doesn't matter. The intent does. And you know it. The arbiter gestured for silence. Kane tapped the panel embedded in the podium. A hologram burst into the air. Grainy, time-stamped surveillance of Vorton's secret meeting with a cloaked figure. The chamber gasped. This footage was pulled from security backups buried beneath Concord encryption. It shows Vorton plotting this provocation. Not just emotionally, but strategically. He was a puppet. The question is, for whom? The image froze on the mysterious figure. Delegates whispered rapidly now, some reaching for personal terminals. Others sat rigid. Reese watched from the gallery. He saw it in their faces. The cracks. Kane continued. The attack was never about Vorton. It was about setting a trap designed to trigger Earth's removal from this chamber, from influence, from power. The footage could be fabricated, one delegate argued. I thought that might come up. Kane activated the second file, the one from the data core recovered in Deck 47. Lines of internal Concord communication scrolled across the projection. One line pulsed red. Initiate Phase 2. Earth must be shown its place, preferably by its own hand. The words hit harder than any fist could have. Private transmissions, Kane said, between senior Concord officials. A strategy of quiet isolation. Misinformation. Sabotage of Earth's credibility. He turned slowly in the center of the chamber. You feared us because you couldn't predict us. You couldn't control us. So you engineered a narrative where we looked like savages, brutes. You fed the illusion. The chamber buzzed louder. And while you whispered about peace and civility, you endorsed assassinations and staged diplomacy. Earth didn't break trust. You did. The Osari delegation sat still as stone. The Zarn, however, hissed in growing rage. One stood, Ambassador Kelvros. Bluster, he said, voice low and coiled. You bring shadows and half-truths. You killed a decorated Orion guard. Now you posture as a victim. Kane's voice dropped. Vorton led a massacre at Stygia. 7. He executed civilians. He murdered a wounded officer from my team, then tried to cover it. More files flickered to life. Declassified, annotated records of Stygia. 7. Body cam footage. Thermal scans. Falsified casualty reports. Kelvros's jaw clenched. Enough! No, Kane said. Not until they understand who we are. He stepped from the podium, walking slowly across the floor. Humanity didn't join this alliance because we were desperate. We joined because we thought this council meant something, that it stood for peace through truth. He stopped in the center. But we came from a planet where peace was never given. It was earned. You've all seen our wars. Our chaos. But you forget something. Kane's voice sharpened. We survived all of it, not by eliminating pain or conflict, but by becoming stronger than both. And that's why you fear us. Because we remember. The chamber quieted again. Not hostile. Listening. Kane faced the judiciary. I defended myself. I did it in line with the codes this council pretends to uphold. If you punish me for that, then you're not judging me. You're condemning the very laws that keep this alliance from collapse. Arbiter Nax studied him for a long time. The council will recess. A vote will be taken. Delegates began to file out. Kane turned toward Earth's bench. Reese met his eyes. Just a nod. No words. Hours passed. Kane waited in the embassy chamber, staring at the council spire in the distance. Stars burned behind it, cold and far away. He remembered what it felt like to drop into enemy fire. The weightless second before contact. He felt that again now. Reese entered quietly. They voted. Kane didn't turn. And you won. He looked up. By 5 votes. Kane exhaled. Not relief. Something colder. The files, they begun circulating. Fringe worlds, outer colonies, they've seen the messages. The tide shifting. Kane stood. The Zarn, gone. They left the chamber. Walked out before the final tally. Of course they did. What happens next? Kane asked. Reese hesitated. They'll regroup, recalculate. They lost a narrative, but not the war. Kane turned back to window. Then we stay ready. In the depths of the Zarn warship Drakmor, Ambassador Kelvros stood before a hollow projector. The face of Director Sale, Tavash, flickered in. You failed, Tavash said flat. We were outplayed. No, you underestimated them. Kel's voice turned bitter. They are too dangerous to remain free. Tavash didn't blink. Then make sure they don't. The feed cut. Kel turned to his aide. Begin the next phase. The midnight silence aboard UNS Archangel was broken only by the low hum of the ship's reactors. Outside its command deck windows, the starfield shimmered like an endless tapestry, cold and ancient. But Commander Eric Kane wasn't looking at the stars. He was watching numbers scroll across the tactical display, watching the final move begin. Zarn fleets have repositioned, Lieutenant Valas said from helm. They're no longer patrolling border sectors. They're massing. How many ships? Kane asked without shifting his gaze. 17 capital class. Dozens of escorts. Cloaked scouts further out. They're not hiding it. Of course not, Reese muttered, stepping into the bridge. They want us to react first. to look like aggressors. "They're not attacking yet," Kane replied. "They're baiting us." Valas zoomed the tactical overlay. They deployed a fortress barge near Varney's Drift. That's Concord territory. Reese blinked. "They're occupying council space?" "Unofficially. The council hasn't responded." Kane frowned. "They won't. Not after the footage. The council's fractured. Half are hoping we'll take the hit." Silence settled like dust. Then Kane spoke. "Prepare Battle Group 1. Full combat readiness. Defensive posture only. And initiate broadcast to all human colonies." Valas raised an eyebrow. "What do we tell them?" Kane stepped forward, voice like tempered iron. "We tell them we're not leaving. Not bowing. We tell them to stand tall." The transmission was short, deliberately so. "This is Commander Eric Kane of Earth's Terran forces. The Zarn have violated Concord space and taken aggressive positions near our borders. We do not seek war. But if war is brought to us, if they fire the first shot, they will never fire a second." It was played on every outpost, every orbital, every ship still flying human colors. It echoed through deep space mining colonies, underwater research bunkers, orbital defense rings. And it sparked something older than policy. Resolve. Far from Earth, aboard the Drakmor, Ambassador Kelvraw stood before his strike captains. Behind him, a tactical rendering glowed red. Earth's sphere of control was tiny, compared to Zarn reach, but it was resilient, layered with overlapping defenses. "They've dug in," growled one Zarn officer. "They will not leave willingly," said another. Ross turned. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "We don't want them to leave. We want them to break." He tapped a sector. "Begin with Vega 9. It's lightly fortified, but symbolically important. Their first interstellar colony. A soft place to start a hard lesson. Orders." Ross didn't blink. No quarter. The attack came 6 hours later. A black crescent of Zarn ships punched through Vega 9's outer perimeter in minutes. Planetary defenses fired, but they were outdated. Firing blind against cloaked drones and hypersonic missiles. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. By the time Earth's reinforcement arrived, Vega 9 was burning. Ash rained across its domes. Craters marked what had once been gardens and homes. Thousands dead. Hundreds missing. On the bridge of the Archangel, the silence was heavier than steel. "They wanted a reaction," Reese said quietly. "They got one," Kane replied. Earth's war machine activated like a sleeping dragon stirred. The resolute Heaven's Lance, and Ararat joined the Archangel in orbit. Rapid deployment marine, cruisers left orbit for frontier systems. But it wasn't about raw numbers. Earth never had numbers. It was how they fought. They didn't fight to maintain empire. They fought to survive it. The Battle of Varney's Drift began with sensor ghosts, faint blips on long-range scans, Zarn stealth ships testing Earth's outer pickets. Then came the real attack, a pincer maneuver with precision strike corvettes. But Earth had changed. Kane's battle group had learned from 1,000 years of asymmetric warfare. He let them come close, then sprang the trap. EMP bursts scrambled their cloaking. Automated minefields detonated in synchronized patterns. Human frigates darted to the chaos like wolves, cutting engines and firing broadside. Each hit was chosen, each explosion personal. The Zarn retreated, half their fleet in shambles. It wasn't a victory that would end the war, but it sent a message. At the Concord Council chambers, panic bled through diplomacy. Delegates from 12 systems demanded intervention. Others called for Earth's removal again, claiming they had destabilized the sector. But they were too late. The Concord had lost its grip. It had let rot seep into its roots, and now Earth was the one burning away the infection. Arbor Nax sent a private message to Kane. "If you retaliate further, you risk full-scale war." Kane replied with a single line. "You should have said that before Vega 9. Kelvraw watched the news feeds from the Drakmor's command center. His officers were restless. The humans weren't folding. They were hardening. "Every time we strike," one said, "they answer harder." "Let them," Vross said coldly. "The harder they become, the more brittle they grow." He pointed at a data stream. Internal resistance building inside the Concorde. See? Not all aliens want Earth here. Some want them gone. Our job is to give them the push. But what if Earth pushes back too hard? Ross turned. Then we break them completely. 2 days later, Earth pushed, not with fleets, not with bombs, with evidence. Kane's team released a full archives from Deck 47 to every Concorde-aligned channel, raw and unedited. Names, meetings, transaction trails. Proof of coordinated sabotage across decades. It didn't spark universal outrage, but it sparked enough. 10 smaller species withdrew support from the Zarn. Trade routes collapsed. Communications froze. The Zarn weren't broken, but they were suddenly alone. And Eric Kane stood on the Archangel's command deck, watching unfold. They'll come back, Reese said beside him. They'll hit harder. They don't know how to lose. I don't care if they come back, Kane answered, so long as they remember what we are. And what's that? Kane stared into the stars. Human. In the end, there was no treaty, no formal surrender, only silence from the Zarn side of the border. For now. And so the line held, not drawn in ink or signed in chamber halls, but forged in fire, blood, and the raw will of a species that refused to kneel